Hey there guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be working on how to place API data into a database. So let's say we have um, a news API. We have this response coming from this API. When we call it, how do we place it into a MongoDB um, type database? So that's what we're going to be working on. So let me show you what I did with this project. So eventually we can, depending on how this video goes, I can build out this whole project and show you how it works. So from this API call, I'm saving information into this database rather than exhausting this API, because when we did our first news project, I told you the criteria was we can only call this API so many times before we're shut out for the day. So what we can do is take this data and plug it into our database and then connect our database to our front end and use the data. So in this website that I built, I'm able to do this all from the API, all from my database, use this data all from my database, um, get all the data that's in the database, and I can filter through it. So this, for example, says claim this PlayStation. So if I hit if I type in claim, it filters through and you can see this. I can also clear that, and I can sort from A to Z, Z to A, and from the newest article to the oldest article. So all this is being done by the data that I got, the response I got from this API, which I put into this MongoDB database, well, into this Mongo database, and then I'm calling the front end over here. But in this video, we're just gonna go over how to place that response into our MongoDB. So let's get started. Okay, so now that I have my Visual Studio Code open, I don't know, whichever editor you use is fine. So I use Visual Studio Code. So now that I have mine open, I just created this project, this folder called API database. You can call yours whatever you want. And within this, we're going to make a directory called server. This is where we're going to house our backend server. And let's cd into that server, clear. And now we want to say npm init and clear. So when we look in this, so let's try that again. See npm init. Let's do that again. So clear cd server. Okay, so make directory server, clear. Let's cd into server, clear that, npm init. Got it. So now we have the package.json, and we just want to use the dependencies of cores, mongoose, nodemon, express, .env, what else? Axios. Yeah, that's what we want to use right now. So we're just gonna install that. Cool. So now that it's all installed, let's clear all this. And if we look in our package.json, as you can see, all this is installed. Now let's go to start. Here we're going to use nodemon, and we're going to say index.js. I'm going to create a file in here called index.js, and there. So we want to say const express is equal to require express. Const app is equal to require, const app is express. And there we go. So now we're trying to app.listen. We're trying to set up our server, and it's going to be let's come over here and give it a port. So port, we're going to use 5000. We're going to say const host name is equal to local host. And for app.listen, we're going to say port. Port comes first, and then host name, console.log, backticks, and we're going to say the server is running on host name and port. Cool. So now let's just start this, npm run start, and our server is live. So as you can see, it says the server is running on localhost 5000. So now what do we want to do? Let's just go ahead and set up our server folder. So let's say this and say we're gonna say new folder, and we're gonna add our controller, and we're just gonna call it news controller. Oh, sorry, we're gonna call this the controller, and the file is gonna be called news controller.js. And then we're gonna create another folder in here, and this is gonna be called models. Model. And this is, we're just gonna call this folder, and we're gonna call this file within it news model.js. Actually, let's just change that and call this news data.js. Cool. So it's gonna be news data. So we have the controller, we have this, and now we need one more. We're gonna call this routes. So within routes, we're gonna have news. Let's call it news route.js. So now that everything is created, let's just go one by one and plug stuff into where we need it. So for this, let's create const mongoose. Well, const mongoose. How do you spell mongoose? No, mongoose is equal to require mongoose. Cool. And down here, we want to say mongoose.connect is equal to so before we do that, let's go back to MongoDB, and I closed out of this. So give me 1 second while I sign back in and show you what we're about to do. Okay, so now I've created my API database project. So I created my project called API database, and now we're just going to connect it. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit, so just so you guys can see, there's nothing in the database right now. It's fully empty. So we just want to connect it. Let's go back to this and hit connect drivers. And I'm just gonna take all this and copy it, and let's see, Visual Studio Code. And what I want to do is create a .env. So let's just leave this as is right now. And then in my server, I'm gonna create a new file called .env. And within this, I'm gonna call this MongoDB and paste all this in there. So for you guys, just make sure you change this password in here. So just take all this out and just plug in the password you used to create the project in MongoDB. I'm not going to be showing you mine, but that's what you want to do. So I'm going to plug mine in and then cut to the other part of the video. Okay, so I went ahead and did that. So what we want to do is make sure we installed npm install .env. I'm not sure if we installed that already. Clear npm run start. Also, by the way, in my .env, when I plugged in my credentials in there for the connect, I made sure to put it inside backticks. It's a habit I have, so that way it's just there's no errors when I call it here. So what you want to do is after that is come over here and say const MongoDB. So this is the variable I'm going to be using, and I'm just going to call it process.env.mongodb because that's what I called it in the data in the .env file. So mongoose.connect, we're going to be saying MongoDB. So we're going to be saying MongoDB. And then now we want to say then after the connection, we want to say console.log the database is connected. So we can say the database is connected. That's fine. And then there's an error somewhere. Okay, let's keep going. And then say dot catch. And for catch, we're going to be catching the error. And we're going to say hold on, I made an error. Dot catch. Then we're going to say error. Arrow function. There we go. And we're just going to console.log error. So let's see. I think I make sure. Okay, so I believe I might have put in the wrong password in here. So let me go ahead and double check because it's not the URI parameter must be a string got undefined. Yeah, so process.env.mongodb. So I'm gonna go ahead and check on the password I put there. I believe it's a wrong password, and then I will come back over here. So I went ahead and changed the password in .env, and then I realized we didn't require the .env up here. So that's the main reason why we're getting this undefined. So let's just go ahead and say require .env.config. So that should clear everything up for us. Let's go ahead and save that. And as you can see, it says the server, the database is connected with it, which is what we want to see when we connect to MongoDB, when we connect to our MongoDB up here. And if it's not, we'll get the error which was shown here. This would be the error. So as you can see, it says Mongoose error. It was console logged here, but we're all set. So now we have our MongoDB connected to our project. So what we want to do now is go to our news API, news.api, and we're going to go to everything. And if you take a look over here, as you can see, these are what you're going to get. You're going to get the source, the ID, the name, the author, title, description, URL, the image, publish that, and content. So this is basically the schema of what we're going to get in our MongoDB when we choose to send this response into the database. So if we look here right now, there's still nothing in there. So let's go ahead and create our schema in here, and what we're gonna say is const. We're just gonna require mongoose awesome. And now we're going to create the schema, and it's going to be const news is equal to mongoose dot schema, and we're going to do that. And now if you look over here, we want this exact schema within our database. So let's just copy this right now. Yeah, we can do that. So we're just going to copy it up until content. If we keep scrolling, so we want it from source to content, and we come down. Let's come back here, and we come back over here. As you can see, we're just going to take that again and copy it down here, and we're going to follow that same path. So as you can see, the first thing we have is source. We're going to do that, and right here you can see there are two objects for source. So what we want to do is open up an array and an object within it, and it's going to say ID. It's going to be a string, and a name is also going to be a string because these are strings. And then we want to move on to the next thing and say author, which is right here. And this is just going to be an object because it's just one author. And this author, the type is going to be string. And here, the reason we're doing this is because here we have an ID and a name. So both of those are just going to be strings. So here, since we only have this, we're going to say the type is string. And we're going to keep going and say title, and title type again is string. String. So let's get to, so we have title done. Now we have description. This, we have to make sure we spelled everything correctly. Description, okay, and description. The type, once again, you guessed it, is string. Now we have the URL, and the URL is also going to be string. So we're just going to keep going this way. So far, if you're understanding this, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. If you want to see the whole project with the front end, you can let me know in the comment section and I'll help build that up. But right now we're just doing this portion. We're just doing the API to database portion. But if you want to see that, don't forget to hit the like, comment in the comment section, and we'll just share the video. So let's see here. The type is also going to be string, and publish that. So the syntax also matters, so we got to make sure it's spelled the same way. Type is string, and content is type string. Awesome. So now what we also want to do is make sure we know when we just want to be able to timestamp this. So what we're going to say is time stamp, and we're going to set it to true. Awesome. And now we're going to set, and now we're going to say const news is equal to mongoose dot model, and we're going to give this the name of news data, and const news, and we're going to call this, let's see, we can't call it the same thing. So news is going to be the schema. Okay, so what we can do is make this capital. So the news capital is going to be the schema, and news lowercase is the model. So we're just going to bring the schema in here and call this news. And now we want to export that. So module that exports is equal to news, and we're exporting news. Awesome. So as you can see, we have the schema built out the same way it shows it in the response here. So now let's go to index.js. Actually, let's go over to our routes. So in our routes now, we're going to be using require const require const express, sorry, is equal to require express, and we're going to say const news route is equal to express dot router. Cool. And now we're going to say module that exports is equal to news route. And now we can come to index.js and apply that here. So let's say, first let's do this app dot, let's get this, require config, let's say const cores, let's do it up here, const cores is equal to require cores. Awesome. Just, and then const use, we're going to use cores here, and app.use, we're going to use express.json. We're just going to put that there because we already have those up. This is not going to be, this is going to be app.use cores. Cool. So we're just going to put these there just so we don't forget. And then we're going to say app, let's come down here and say const news. We're just going to call it news and say require. We're going to use the route. We're going to go over to routes. We're going to use news route. Cool. And now we're going to say const use again, and we're going to call this API, and this is going to be called news. So now our news route, this news route is going to have the API slash API attached to it. So it'll be localhost 5000 slash API. So now let's clear out of that and come back here. So what we want to do is news route dot get, and we're going to be doing this, and let's just leave it at that for right now. And so now we can go to our controller, and in our controller is where we're going to set up our logic. So we're going to say const axios here is equal to require axios, and then const API key is equal to process.env.api key. So right now we don't have an API key, but I'll show you all that process. I'm just making sure I have everything down, and then we're gonna be actually let's just build it out first. So let's just keep building it out step by step. So let's go here, and here if you guys don't have a news API .org news API key, you go ahead and create an account. Create the free account. You don't really need the paid, so create the free account for this, and then go to your documentation and go to everything. So within everything, if you click on that, so just make sure you get your own API key. This is not the full API key, so this is not going to work for you. So just make sure you get your own API key. So within that, we're going to be using the title as our search. So what we want to do now is, let's see, where is this? So we want to use everything. So let's just take, let's use this one. So we're going to take everything here up until API key, copy that, go right back to our thing here, and we're gonna go to .env, and we're gonna create, actually we don't really have to do that at this point. We can just go exports.news, because we're gonna be exporting this into the router. So in here, we're gonna be using it here. So we're gonna be saying export.news, and it's gonna be sorry, equal to async require response arrow function, and we're going to be saying const news data is equal to await, since it's an asynchronous function, so async await, and make sure you have Axios so this can work, and then Axios dot get, and then paste that in there. So just put this between backticks. And now remember how I said we're going to have an API key? So let's just say API key is equal to, here API key is given and it's going to be equal to your actual API key. We're not going to be using that because you don't want to show the credentials. So right now this is just like a third of my API key. So you don't want to show your API key. So what you want to do is go to your .env and put your API key in there. So right now we're just going to do this. Let's say we're going to do this, and we're going to plug in API key that we have up here. So I'm going to go into my .env and place my API key in there, and I'm going to be back with you guys shortly. Okay, so I've plugged in my API key into my .env, and now this works properly. So we're going to say API key here, but let's just, before we use, let's use something like what I used. I used PlayStation here instead of Bitcoin. So we're gonna say PlayStation, and we're gonna be search in. So if you come over here, it'll tell you search in, and remember we're gonna be using title. So go back in there, wrap that search in equals title, and we're going to make the page size equal to 15. So if you come back here, if you look for page size, it's going to tell you the number maximum return is 100. So you don't need this much for your project, for this particular project, because although you can put 100 uh, results into your database, which is perfectly okay. For this kind of project, you don't really need it because you're only trying to see how to accomplish a goal. So if you want to do that, go ahead. But I just put it as 15 just so you're able to really see what's going on. And I think with 15 results, you can see everything on one page in your database, rather than like going to every single page. And also on the front end, you wouldn't have to paginate having 100 um, different results. But if you want to, you go ahead and do that. It's your project. But with this, I'm just going to be doing 15. So I'm going to say page size is 15. Language is equal to English. So if you come down here to language, wait, so if you come over to, where is it? Let's see, that's a response object. So there it is. So language would be in the request parameters, correct? So language, I think this the default is English. So, oh no, default all languages are returned. So you want to be specific. Here in the US, I speak English, so I'm just gonna pick English. But you can pick any of these. It's the 2-letter ISO code. So if you see your ISO code there, just pick it. I'm picking English because that's the only language within these options that I can understand. So I'm just gonna be picking this one. So if we go back to this, we're all set here. So if I save this, I can now say, where is it? I can come down here and say const data is equal to news data dot data. So remember, this is the data we're getting from the API call, and we're gonna say dot articles, because if you look here, all this is within articles. So we're just gonna say dot article. So we're gonna go into this article, into this articles where we're gonna have all this. So now, if we want to see, we can just console.log data. But we also have to res.send data. So so now we can export this news and go to news.route and go to news. So it exports over here. So remember, this is /API. So if I go to localhost 5000 /API, oh, it says cannot get API. So let's see. Let's close this. News route. Where's my index? So let's see. /use API /news. So let's see. Let's try that again. There we go. So we just forgot to put a backslash here. So it's /API news. And this is the data we get back. As you can see, it's 15 pieces of data, 15 articles. If we go down here, we should also see it in the console log. And this is our data. So now we want to take this data. So if you look in our MongoDB, if you refresh that, and within our, as you can see, there's no data. So we still have our database holds no collections. There's nothing in there. So now we want to take that information and take this information and send it right into the database. So the way we do that is we have to write the logic for it. So let's go back to news. There you go. So let's do this. Let's put this in a try catch. So we're just going to take this, put that in there, and then we're going to console.log error if there's an error. So that takes care of that. And now down here, we're also going to do another try catch. And within this try, we're going to say const inserted, or let's just say data inserted is equal to await news, and this is the news from model. So this is news from model. Remember, we exported it as news, so we're getting it here again. So await news, and we're gonna say insert many because we're inserting a bunch of documents, well, a bunch of articles, not just one. We're inserting all these articles, and within this parentheses, we're gonna say data, because data is what we're calling the data we get from the API. So we're inserting data, and then we can say process exit 0. So I believe, so this just says once the process is complete, we're just gonna exit. That's pretty much the spill on that. So, and then we're gonna say console.log error, and we're gonna do the same thing, process.exit. And as you can see, it says method instructs Node.js to terminate this process synchronously with an exit code, with exit status of code. If the code is omitted, exit either user status success code 0 or the value of process exit code. So we're just gonna go with, because success is code 0. So we're just gonna say, and then it says Node.js will not terminate until all the exit events listener are called. So cool. So we're just gonna say console log error and exit code 0 for this also. Um, so regardless, we just want to exit it. So you don't necessarily have to have this constant there, this data inserted, this variable, but you can always console log it, so it shows you if something was inserted. So let's take out this console log here so we can make space in our terminal. Let's do this, clear, npm run start. Cool. So now if you come back into this and you refresh it, there should still, there should still be nothing there. But however, now our database is active. It has the name attached to it, but as you can see, there's nothing there. So now if I run this, if I refresh this, remember by refreshing it, I'm sending the data again. If I do that and I look over here, it console logs our inserted data, because remember uh, yeah, that should be our inserted data. Yep, as you can see, it's our inserted data. Yep, because this should be console log. This should be, there we go. So now if we look over there, so this should have been commented out. So I don't know, I guess there was a space in between, but it's commented out. So all this comes from this console log, data inserted. So we can try to get, actually that's fine. So it's all our inserted data. You can see that because of this, it's telling you there's a new object and it's giving you an object ID. So that only happens in the MongoDB, not in this console log data. It's showing, it's console log the data that was inserted. So now if we refresh this, voila, we have 1 of 15. So this is how we do, this is how we insert the data into our MongoDB. So if you guys want to see how to transfer this data to our front end, you can just go ahead and comment in the video, comment at the end of the video, or comment as you're watching this, and like and share the video, so that way I know that you guys are enjoying this content, so I can make more of it. So remember, the goal I had with this project was to create, give me 1 second. So yeah, so the goal I had with this project when I did it was to create um, create a front end component to my project that used data from this database. And while doing so, I also wanted to be able to filter and sort this data in my front end. So if you look at this, I am able to sort. This is all 15. These are all 15 articles from my database from my personal project. And remember, you're able to filter through it, uh, clear out the filter, and you're able to sort through all of this. So if you guys want to see how to do this, uh, hit that like button and comment and subscribe, and just let me know that you guys want to learn how to do this also. But that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you on another video. Peace.